So poops, every greeting promises a goodbye, and the world recently said goodbye to Syed Naquib Al-Attas, who is kind of a unique character. So unique that apparently the Prime Minister and young di-Pertuan Agong decided to say goodbye to him as well. Coincidentally, this individual is somebody that I had the privilege to engage with through his books and through his writing. So with that in mind, let's discuss who we're saying goodbye to. So poops, Syed Naquib Al-Attas was Malaysia's second Professor Diraja after Unku Aziz. He was the founder of the ISTAC, otherwise known as the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, which is currently under maintenance apparently. And he was a scholar of Islamic metaphysics and philosophy and a range of other things as well. Very different from his brother Syed Hussein Alatas. I like the guy's works, they are relevant even today and even now. But Naquib? Yeah. I mean, sure, the man has had a long, established, very heavily supported by the Malaysian government career as he's gone on this whole journey to so-called Islamize knowledge, a concept that he came up with and decided to pioneer along his journey, during which he had a very strong influence upon a certain Anwar Ibrahim in his ABIM years, serving as his teacher and guiding the man into the insan that he is today, with books like Islam and Secularism, which frankly I thought was kind of garbage. Whoa. But not because I hate the subject matter or anything out there, but because it is just, in my opinion, not a well-written book. It's one of those books that a lot of people like to pretend that they understand, even as they go through all of its fancy language, and very quickly discover that most of it is actually...
Feel free to choose your word.
I mean, I read the entire thing and I understand the entire thing. It's just that at the end of the day, through all of this abstruse writing, which a whole ton of these so-called IOK projects
are based on,
I am left just wondering, even after reading, whether his Prolegomena, his concept of education, or Anwar Ibrahim's favorite book, what exactly is meant by making knowledge Islamic. There are some definitions, some ideas out there, and there's definitely a push out there to purify the mind from all of those Western colonial assumptions in our knowledge to make sure that we are no longer #dijajah.
but with almost no practical guidance, basically rendering the entire project useless.
And as Muhammad Faisal Musa casually notes, influence Prime Minister after Prime Minister, many of whom I doubt actually understood what he was even talking about, but probably decided to share it because he is renowned, he is truly amazing, we must support him. But frankly, I don't know what the impact of any of this has been apart from extra classes related to religion, a thorough insistence that everything that people learn has to be integrated with values from religion, which Faisal Musa casually notes lack the dynamic needed to extend its life beyond its present form, the concept, and has evolved to become a threat to Malaysia's heterogeneous society and socio-political fabric, evident from the impact it has had on education and culture in Malaysia. Yup. Oh, and you want to know the sad part? This researcher owes a debt of gratitude to Sharifa Afra Alatas and to Syed Hussein Alatas' son right here in writing this piece about their relative. Wow, I wonder what was going on there. Now, for those of you out there who think that this was a great and monumental loss to the world, I acknowledge your pain. I acknowledge your right to feel the way that you feel. I'm sure that he was a great teacher, lecturer. You looked up to him. But I wonder how many of you out there can even explain this idea of the so-called Islamization of knowledge that this guy was casually trying to sell out there and that the Malaysian government went and promoted, but that at the end of the day is still a fringe idea that some people in Malaysia like to celebrate as one of the greatest intellectual developments of this entire country.
Sorry, of our age.
But still, by the way, cannot compare to the work of Wael Halak in The Impossible State. And what I'm suggesting there is you can mourn Syed Naquib, sure, by all means. Especially if you are family, then you should go right ahead and mourn the guy. But frankly, he was funded, supported, and basically made use of to support Malaysia's state agenda. But of course, let us not criticize our professor too much, but instead share something interesting that I discovered along the way of learning about this person.
That is not not by me.
Coincidentally, Professor James Chin wrote a post about Syed Naquib, and coincidentally, I also happened to have sent him a couple of pages of a book showcasing a little bit of his character sometime last year, and coincidentally enough, it was a book about Lim Kit Siang by Ki Tuan Chai, during which Naquib appears in a very unique way, I must say. Really specifically, Lim Kit Siang had a debate with Naquib, because apparently Naquib, despite having Arabic and Circassian heritage, and not being Malay in any meaningful way except constitutionally, and despite the fact that he wrote in English, declared that apparently only literature written in Malay could be considered Malaysian literature, and literature in other languages like Chinese, Tamil, and English would not be considered Malaysian, even if they were by Malaysians and about Malaysia. Oh, I'm sorry, Tash Aw, Rowan Lau, guy who wrote The Garden of Evening Mist and received a letter from the Queen, and oh, Victor Tan.
Buy my books, poops.
I guess none of you are Malaysian, and you wrote nothing about Malaysian culture since you were writing in English, and I guess that most of what Syed Naquib wrote was not Malaysian either, given the fact that he wrote in English. Anyway, Lao Ta, as some people might call him, went and criticized Naquib, upon which our man says that, well, Malaysian culture should be based on Malay culture, and Gerakan did nothing at all, and Lim Kit Siang responds right here, quite well I might say. Naquib makes a very surprising rebuttal, and calls DAP leaders crabs. I'm like, what? He calls the DAP a confused company of futile clowns disguised as politicians, and says, one normally does not challenge crabs, but in this case the boiling pot is ready, and it is not so much a challenge as an invitation to Mr. Lim and other members of the DAP leadership to be steamed. I am therefore pleased to spare some time to give Mr. Lim Kit Siang a taste of a debate with me and Gerakan, and to give him a chance of a last scream. Wow. And it was from that date onwards that I knew him as the crab professor. Anyway, there's a whole story there about what exactly happened, most of which does not make our Professor Diraja look very good, even as Naquib discovers that he is out of his element and he would have been better teaching people instead of going out there and trying to take part in debates like this. But yep, that's the guy that Malaysia has just said goodbye to. We said goodbye to his brother many years ago, and I guess Naquib's death is just more fresh in the minds of people at the moment. But I have to say that right now, as both of them are gone, it's a good time to think about both of their legacies at the same time. And I have to say, when I think of what they created, they were really very different human beings. They accomplished very different things. But one of them just happened to be more celebrated because he studied the right things, even if his so-called students don't seem to be able to say anything about what he actually taught them. Apart from that, it influenced them so much and they are so honored to have been a part of his teachings. But if you compare that to Syed Alatas with the myth of the lazy native, his studies of Raffles, and so many other things like the idea of a captive mind and autonomous knowledge and all that stuff, I think Syed Alatas is still the more relevant intellectual. I'm sorry.
A lot of you seem to think so as well, by the way.
But of course, that is a separate matter from mourning the death of the man. His death, even at the age of 94, must have been a tragedy for a lot of people who look to his legacy as something that's meaningful, relevant, and enlivening for them even in the modern age. And so to those people and to Syed Naquib Al-Attas' family, again, my condolences. But well, Syed Naquib would have wanted things to be put in their right place. He would have valued adab, and so I would, with all of the adab that I can muster, put knowledge in its right place and say, Syed Naquib, your brother's legacy is better than yours. But anyway, that's my opinion, and I want to know what you think. What do you think about Naquib's legacy? Do you miss the man? And what are your thoughts on the fact that he's gone? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's all I'll say about that, and bye.